Why Ford? Why is Ford your go-to, if that makes any sense, your favorite
Sure.
manufacturer?
Sure. Well, I grew up around Fords. My grandfather, my dad's father, was a service manager at a Ford dealership. We still have the 1966 Ford Bronco that my dad's been riding around in since he was 10. Um, and I've been riding in it since I was a week old. It was the shop truck, and they beat around in it. So I guess it's just I grew up around Fords. And when this new S550 Mustang came out, it just seemed like an all around the kind of car that I wanted. I'm an engineer at Detroit Speed, and we do a lot of
Hmm.
stuff with American cars. And I sat in the Mustang and I fell in love.
That's awesome, man. Now, your first autocross was in 2017.
That's correct.
And 5 years ago, September the 3rd, this year, you basically were in the SCCA solo Nats. And for those that don't know, can you tell us what SCCA is?
Sure. SCCA is probably the longest standing sports car organization in the world, Sports Car Club of America. And it basically started as a dozen guys came back from World War II,
Hmm.
and they imported their British sports cars that they were ripping around in Europe. They loved driving the cars there, so they let them bring them back to the United States. And the guys were like, well, we want to just, hoon them around, just like you and me want to today. They were, the same thing back then. And they started hosting, they called them gymkhanas in parking lots, where they would just set up cone courses and do tricks around them. And that eventually evolved into the Sports Car Club of America. We've got thousands of members. And anybody, the beauty of this is I'm nobody special. I'm just a guy who likes going fast, and anybody can get involved with this club. There's autocrosses held all over the country. Just you got to go to there's a website called motorsportreg.com. Motorsport, REG, short for registration. And you put in your zip code, and it finds you all the events that are going on all over. So
Wow.
it's real easy. This is my daily driven Mustang, and it does 30 events a year. It's really, I got to do a little extra maintenance to it, and make sure it's in good shape. But you don't have to run it. The beauty of it is it's as much or as little as you want to get out of it. So your local region, they host maybe 10 events a year. If you want to go to one or two to try it out, it's a really supportive group. All the regions, they have novice classes, they have instructors for free.
Oh,
We'll get in the car with you and help you out, navigate your first event, and join the ranks, get you involved. And that's how I started 5 years ago. I had a little Subaru. I didn't even have my own helmet. I had to borrow a helmet, but they had free loaners, and my friends just finally got me to go do it. And it was a night event in the rain in a mall
hmm.
parking lot in upstate New York. So it's dark, it's wet, and I'm hooning my Subaru, having the time of my life. And that started it all for me. So that's
Wow.
kind of the beauty of it. I knew nothing, and that's the thing. Like a lot of people, you just got to leave your ego at home. You're gonna suck your first time performance driving. Everybody
Mhm.
sucks. Nobody comes out knowing what to do. So just get at it. Go find your local region. The events are usually less than $50 for the day. Just go check it out. Go support your local motorsports. It's a lot of fun. It's changed my life.
That's really awesome, man. And I've been, of course, I've following you from Facebook and hearing stories you've told me. I mean, you've been getting really involved in a lot of races, and you recently ran in Nebraska. What was the track called? You were there from like the 6th to the 9th. And if I'm correct, didn't you finish like 25th or something like that?
25th in my class. So there were 1,102 drivers that go to the SCCA Solo Nats.
Wow.
So, like we talked about, there's local SCCA clubs all over the country. Well, they get together and they run these, they call them national tours.
Okay.
And there's a few different kinds of tours. They run different styles of events. And they travel all over the country. So kind of the beauty of SCCA is that I get guys who I went to college with that got me started in this. They travel down south and they do the Bristol tour. They do the Charlotte tour when it comes to Bristol Motor Speedway, when it comes to Charlotte Motor Speedway. And then I've gone up to do their tour that they host up in the Finger Lakes in New York at an old airstrip. So the kind of the culmination of all of these tours is that there's a point system, and then there's basically the Super Bowl is the solo national championships. The biggest one, a typical tour is like 300 drivers. The solo nats is, the cap is 1,300, so 1,000 more than what's at a typical tour. But they had 1,102 this year, and basically that's it. We're going to figure out who's the best of the best in each class. So I ran in the biggest class, D Street, in the yellow Mustang, and I came in 25th out of 60 cars in the class, which is pretty respectable, considering this car has the worst power to weight ratio in the class, and it's a street class. So I can't modify the car a lot. I can't cut weight out. I have to keep it on stock suspension. I can't tune the engine. I can do minor things like shocks and sway bars, but the street classes keep getting faster. So there's a Honda Civic Type R. That's the car to have now, that has 30 more wheel horsepower, and it weighs 400 pounds less. So I can't do anything in the rules to overcome it. So for 25 out of 60, I'm calling it the best of the rest. I was the first car that wasn't a Type R, or one of the newer, the Toyota, the Subaru, the BRZ, the second gen of that. Those cars are wicked too. They added the power. So I felt pretty good, and I still crack. They have a system, kind of like a handicap system, to compare cars across different classes, different power, weight, horsepower, performance levels. So I did manage to crack the top third of the packs. The theoretical, it simulates if everybody drives the same car. So I was in the 300s out of 1,102. So it was cool to see that. And that's about how I do locally too. So as it was interesting how you scale it up to see on a national level with the toughest competition in the world, how things shake out.
Definitely, and that's really impressive. And now I wonder, like, is there a starting lineup, like to determine a starting lineup? Do y'all have like qualifying? And I'm not really too familiar with all this, so fill me in. Do y'all like set a starting lineup via times, or like y'all have like a bracket system? What? So kind of explain that to us if you can.
Sure. So basically, the venue is the Lincoln Air Park, which also doubles as a military base. So it was really cool being around there. They had some awesome planes that they flew over, and they actually let us go up into one of the planes, a surveillance plane. And basically they set up 2 courses at nationals. Usually at most autocross tours, there's just one. But because of the volume of the cars, they set up 2, and they run 2 separate competitions one day, and then you switch courses the second day, and you run so they had an East course and a West course. And the courses range from 3/4 of a mile to a mile long on a nationals course. Now at a locals course, some sites, it's hard to secure sites, so you might only get like a course that ends up being a half a mile, a quarter mile. But basically they give you, at a local, you show up at 7 o'clock in the morning, and then you take 3 hours, and they let you walk the course. So you get to learn it and figure out, where you need to go. And then you just run it. There's no qualifying. Everybody's classed just by rules. You show up and they look at your car in tech inspection, and they look for the basic things. But it's not so much like NASCAR, that NASCAR does an in-depth inspection, it's kind of self-policed. So there actually were protests at nationals this year. After everybody does their runs for in the class for the day, everybody has to have their hoods and trunks open, and your competitors are free to come over and look for every little minute detail on your car that'll put you out. Yeah, there was a big debate over one of the classic American muscle class. The rules are kind of open-ended, and there's a very vague rule about having a finished car, having a finished appearing car. And there was a Corvette that didn't have a back bumper. But the way that he did that, it kind of looked cool. Like it was styled in such a way. But somebody didn't like it. And I think they just wanted to get in the trophy spot to knock this guy out. So there was kind of a controversy about that.
So sorry to interrupt. So basically, drivers could go to other drivers' cars and, be like, hey, that doesn't look right, and go to official. So
yeah, absolutely.
Did that cause any like tempers or any heated moments?
It can. So sometimes I think what annoyed the people in this particular debate was there was no discussion between the drivers. They just filed a protest to the officials, and then so it was kind of my friend actually had to protest over not a car, but he had to protest a cone call. There was a mistake on his runs. The course workers identified cones that weren't his fault, so that was kind of heated. He had to prove with GoPro, and luckily he had GoPros around his car, and he was able to show that he didn't hit those cones.
That's very interesting.
It gets intense when you're talking. So the big kind of bragging rights to all of it is winning a jacket. They give you an SCCA jacket with your name on it. Like there's and it says champion on the back. There's no money involved in this. Wow. It's club motorsports. And people really want those jackets, those championships, those bragging rights. But that's kind of the beauty of the sport too, in that the street classes, the rules, like I probably have maybe $2,000 in modifications to my car to make it street class, and I am built like that's it. That is all I can do. So there's a class kind of for everybody to fit into. So you don't need a whole lot of money. You don't need a race car to do this, a dedicated race car. This car is literally my daily driver. And I beat on it, but I've taken care of it. And that's how it's been able to, a lot of preventative maintenance. And that's how it's been able to do over 150 events in 4 years.
Wow. That's really cool, dude. I actually didn't know. See, I didn't know like what the winners received for some of the events that you run in. I didn't know if like you got money or anything like that, but man, so it's basically sort of like everyone's in it because it's fun, doing what you love. And, that's the right thing. Even though, of course, winning awards and all that is pretty cool and all. But so I was really surprised to hear that there was that many. I haven't heard of like races other than in Europe where there's like 1,000 or so cars in it. So that kind of surprised me, but that's also really cool.